Should go ahead already. All right, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar, Making Online Learning a Success. And I think we are all working towards that goal. And thankfully, Jessica is here, Jessica Hayes, to present to us. Jessica has been teaching for 7 years in Alabama. She is certified in social science education as well as English language arts. She's been working with social studies school service for 6 years, constructing curriculum maps, conducting webinars and trainings, and writing blog posts. So she is a busy lady. She's also teaching virtually this year, so I'm excited to have her today. My name is Miss Melissa Knowles. I'm going to be recording the session and managing the chat. If you have anything you want to add into the chat today, that would be great. If you need me to slow down or speed up, or if you have a question, just let us know and I will present that to Jessica at an appropriate time. So Jessica, are you ready to start?
I am. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. I'm excited for you to be here. We're going to be talking about some tips and tricks to help make online learning a success and just a little bit more easier. I know this is a time where it can be stressful and it's new, so hopefully you can take back some of these tips into your classroom, use them in your virtual environment, and hopefully you have some of your own that you can share with us as well this evening. So just to kind of get us started, since you are here and you are here to learn about online learning, I'm going to assume you have all met with your students in the virtual environment. I would like to know, which platform do you use to meet with your students? Is it Google Meet, Zoom, or some other platform? So if you would, on your screen, there is an annotation tool. If you could find that, if you click on annotation tool, and then there's also a stamp button. You can choose your stamp and then stamp in the column that designates your platform. Is it a Google Meet, a Zoom, or other? And this will kind of help us guide our session if we kind of know which platform is being used the most.
So Jessica, is it okay if I give him a little bit more directions? We see a lot of people that are doing Google Meet in the chat. If you put your mouse up to the top and you see you're viewing Jessica Hayes' screen and go, it should pop down a toolbar, and annotate should be one of the options in the toolbar.
Ooh, got one for Google Meet. See, it might be difficult to use a stamp if we have some people who are driving and listening.
That is true.
So, but do you see that it's in the Google Meet in the chat? Is that what's being said?
Yes, so 2 Google Meet and 1 Zoom.
Okay. All right, let's move on. So here is our agenda. We are going to be looking at tips for online learning success. So that is the big thing that we're going to be discussing this afternoon. And these tips can be applied to any online learning format. With some of these tips, I will be using examples from Active Classroom. But these tips are not applied solely to Active Classroom or another social studies school service product. You can use these tips in any virtual environment. All right, so here is my first tip. And this one, actually, the first and the second tip might actually be good at the beginning of the school year. You may have already been in school for a few weeks now, but this first one is to establish online norms or expectations. So when you are starting to meet virtually with your students, you need to establish some expectations for them, for students to follow every time that they join the online meeting. And so I've pasted the one that I have used with my virtual students this year. It's just a basic general list that I think most teachers would use in their own for their own classrooms. But I asked for students to mute themselves when they join. I wanted them to use video capabilities, dress appropriately, reduce those noises and those distractions around them, and then also no eating during these meetings. However, I should have probably also have added to treat others with respect during online conversations, and then no phone usage. Is there anything else that you would add or take away to this list? And you can put that in the chat box as well. So at my school, we do use Google Meet, and most of these norms were established by the administration for our video meetings, and there was a few I added on my own. But they also told us if a student is not doing what they're supposed to, if they are being a distraction, they're being disruptive to the learning environment, then we were given the okay to dismiss them from the meeting. And that is a tool that's available on Google Meet, is to dismiss those students. There is also a note about cell phones I wanted to mention, and I guess for some reason I just didn't think it would be as much of an issue online, than it would be in class. However, and it hasn't really been, but you do not want students to take pictures or videos of you during these virtual meetings. Not every kid has given permission to have their picture taken, and not every kid will feel comfortable with their picture taken. So I haven't had a big issue. I've just heard about things happening. So that's something that you would also want to take into consideration as well. Melissa, has anybody put in the chat box anything that they would add to this list or take away?
Yes, Ken said if a student does not answer when called upon, they're absent.
That is something that's good to include. Yes, for sure. And especially if they don't have their video camera on, how do you know that they're even participating or they're even there watching? So that is something that's good to add. All right, let's move on to tip 2. Oh, nope. Sorry, I forgot about my poll everywhere. And this is a strategy that you can use in your own classroom, either your traditional or your virtual. You may be familiar with poll everywhere, but I wanted us to go to pollev.com/Jessica Hayes Jessica Hayes 406 and just answer this question. How do you feel about students using the video feature during virtual meetings? So there's no right or wrong answer. I really just wanted to kind of gauge your feelings about this and for us just to use poll everywhere. Our district wants us, for our students, to have them on so that we know that they are participating. However, there has been some arguments that students may not feel comfortable having the video capabilities on if they're not in a space that is conducive for online learning. Maybe they don't feel comfortable showing the place where they live. So I just kind of wanted to gauge y'all's thoughts, your feelings on it. And just you can use this poll everywhere, this strategy in your classroom and online, just to take a quick survey from students. There's other options that you can use on poll everywhere that it gives you. There's multiple choice questions that you can use with your students. You can create multiple choice questions, and you can also use word clouds. So there's a lot of different options there for you. So please go to pollev.com/Jessica Hayes 406.
I've added it into the chat also if you want to copy and paste it. So Jessica, it did say that that it's waiting for use.
Okay, so maybe it did not activate. Let me see. Yes, it had deactivated on me.
Okay.
So are they video capabilities necessary for virtual meetings? Yes, it's disrespectful, or it is necessary for attendance, or no, it's not necessary and it can make a student feel uncomfortable. So here we're saying that 2 are done and 1 is underway. So here we see 33 says 33% say yes, 67% say no, not necessary. Here we go. So this could be a quick survey tool to use for in your classroom, in your virtual learning environment, or even in your traditional classroom. I actually have a traditional and a virtual. So I have 2 traditional and 1 virtual. Melissa, what do you think? Should video capabilities be necessary during virtual meetings?
So I said no, I think it can make students uncomfortable, especially in the upper grades, depending on their home situation. That was a hard one though, because I'm sort of on the fence on that one.
Yes, yes, I kind of am too. I mean, I see it because I have had one student who did not have their video camera on, but then when I asked them a question or anything, they didn't respond. So I could see it go about both ways. Maybe they didn't want it on to show where they're at, or then maybe they didn't want it on because they just really didn't want to participate. So I see both ways as well.
Yeah, like little check-ins periodically. Peter said that his response is based on the fact that he's mostly taught upper middle school and high school. So which response did you choose, Peter? You can hold your space bar to unmute. There you go.
I chose no. It's not necessary.
Mhm.
However, I am currently a district level support person for teachers, and our K-5 teachers, they insist it's the only way they can keep track of their students. But I also feel there's ways to keep students involved using, like we use Zoom in my school district. So, you can have polls, you can put questions in the chat, you can do what Ms. Hayes has done and use a plethora of polling sites to make sure that they're participating and everybody's participating. So, I mean, some of it depends on your comfort as an individual teacher. Some of it may be dictated by your district as well.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Yes, I totally agree. There are other ways to get students engaged in your virtual meetings. So here is tip number 2, get to know your students. This would also be good at the beginning of the school year. I know, again, that probably y'all are probably several weeks into your school year, but it's good to get to know your students. Of course, we know that at the beginning of the school year, and then also to continue to check in on them throughout the semester. So getting to know our students, how can we do this productively, effectively online? So some of you may have, these established get to know you activities that could be smoothly transitioned into the online environment, but some of you may want some new different ideas. So one thing that I thought about is, you can introduce yourself with a PowerPoint presentation. You can include, of course, your name, picture of yourself, facts about yourself, and this could be an easy introduction, and it could also be a first few days assignment for students. So you could present yourself in a fresh way, and it's also a model for students for how students should create their own, and you can set your own parameters of what students should include. They could also include their name, picture, favorite movie or book, favorite period of history to study, favorite quote. So that could be an easy way to get to know students. Creating a Flipgrid, that is another one. These are just short videos that you can create, and you can introduce yourself as a teacher through those videos, and students can view those. But then you can have students create their own Flipgrids. But plus, once they see yours, students are going to have a better idea of how to conduct themselves during those videos. So a major theme is to model. So this would give students practice with presenting, and they're going to get a little bit more comfortable presenting and in this virtual environment because they have more control over the Flipgrid. They can record as much as they want until it looks the way that they want and they're comfortable to share it with everyone else. For those of you who have a larger online student population, I'm not sure how many you have in your virtual class. In my one virtual class, I have 63 students. So that has been hard to navigate a little bit. But just a good old-fashioned discussion may just fit the bill for something that is as large a population as that, because you may not have time to sit there and watch 63 plus videos and presentations. So just sitting and talking with students could help create the community that you are striving for. If you do have a large class size, creating those smaller groups to meet throughout the week may be another option as well, if your district will let you break those students, that large class, into smaller groups. And also, we need to be continuing to check in with our students throughout the school year to see how they're doing, not only for academic purposes, but also for their mental health as well. Using a word cloud at the beginning of a virtual meeting can accomplish this. Here is a picture of one word cloud that I use with my class. I created it in Menti. It's MENTI meter, and Melissa, she can type that into the chat box, mentimeter.com. So it's similar to Poll Everywhere, but I used it several times in my classroom this year. But so I use this word cloud. I asked them, how is virtual school going? So as you can see, the more a certain word was typed in, the larger that it gets. So a lot of my students, they were feeling great. They were feeling good about the virtual school during those first few weeks. But you can also see, if you really look, there's some people who put lonely and stressful. So it just gave me a quick survey of how students are feeling. And then you might want to address that as well. You might say to students, hey, if you want to stay at the end of this meeting and talk about what's going on, how you're feeling. So that can help you address those concerns with students. You can also create a Google form for check-ins. Maybe you include a box where students can type in questions they may have, or maybe you want to create a form for virtual office hours as well. So using the chat, do you have any kind of get to know you activities that would be easy to implement, or maybe even other ideas to check in on students throughout the school year?
So Ken said he'll never complain about his class size again. And Peter agreed with you about Mentimeter, that it's a great way to get a feel for where your students are at any given time or day.
Yes.
I love the word cloud. You can see it in time also. You can see it in real time.
It's growing in time. Yeah, that one.
Just say that Menti built it in real time. You can put it up there and then put the word cloud up there, and the students can watch it get built regardless of what the topic of the Mentimeter is. It could be content related, but they get to watch it build immediately, and it's a way to reel them in or back in if you feel you're losing them in this virtual digital setting.
Yes. So yeah, this is another way to get students engaged in your virtual meetings and to make sure they are participating.
Laura had a suggestion of the use of a mood meter.
Ooh, mood meter.
So if you can elaborate in the chat, Laura, that would be awesome on that mood meter.
I need to write that down, mood meter.
Actually, while she's typing, my supervisor, we had a meeting Monday morning, and she put the grid up. It's a 4-quadrant grid done by colors. The upper two are red and yellow, and they're the really active, really high energy. Even if you're mad, it's still a high energy one. And then the lower 2 quadrants are the more kickback ones. And again, it's color coded. It's like using cards with your students when you come in terms of, are you ready to learn or not? You know, the trauma sensitive cards I'm thinking of are green, yellow, and red. green, you're ready. Yellow, you're almost there. Red is a no way on this planet am I ready to learn yet. And it gives you an idea on who you need to check in with again in a minute or two, or who you need to just look over. Have they gone from yellow to green? You'd be able to tell that.
That is a good idea. I'm writing these down. That grid, green, red, yellow, that is a good idea to check in on our students and see how they're doing and if they're ready. And that would also be good for my traditional students as well, because a lot of times they're not ready.
So Laura also explained it the same way. It has 4 quadrants of emotions, and then they pick an emotion and reflect on it. That's really neat.
That is neat. I'm writing this all down. So here's some Chrome extension. If you are using Google Meets, I just listed some that might be useful, and you're probably already using these. But just in case, Meet Attendance, that will take your attendance during Google Meet. I also have Google Meet Grid View. This one has been a little finicky for me, but you're supposed to be able to see every participant in Google Meet. And then there's Nod for Google Meet. That's a participant reaction button, but the thing with this one is every student would have to add that extension, but they could add basically kind of like reactions with Zoom, and it's just emojis. And then Screencastify, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one here in a little bit, and you can record your own presentations in Chrome and send them to students. And if there's other Chrome extensions that you have found that works well, I would love to hear about it. So here is tip number 3, be diverse in the readings and the activities that you assign. So you don't want to give, multiple readings several days or days in a row, or nor do you want to assign for students the same learning strategy every single time. You want your students to be engaged. So as you can see, I created this list of things that are easy to assign digitally, and then things that might need a little bit more effort to assign. If you're using Active Classroom, we do have a lot of these activities that are ready to go, very simple to send out to students and have them complete. Like with simulations, Active Classroom does have a lot of simulations, and you may have a simulation that's not with Active Classroom, but that one would take a little bit more effort. You might have to read up on the teacher's guide of how to implement. But on the easy to assign, readings, image analysis, videos, songs, maps, all of these are just different activities that you can assign that's pretty simple to assign to students. PowerPoints, plays, there's a lot of plays with the Active Classroom. Lectures, and I'm going to talk about how to record your own lectures here in just a bit. In journals, I added that one. I've actually created for my students journal prompts using Google Slides. So on each slide is a different prompt, and they had to I'm also an English teacher, so I've used this for English as well, and so I kind of use it as a brain dump for each different prompt. I wasn't really worried so much about spelling and grammar, but just getting their ideas down. And sometimes I would time them because I want them to be able to build up their writing stamina as an English teacher. So that's just one idea. If you have journals, maybe you like to use them as bell ringers or warm-ups, that's something that you can consider as well. So you also need to consider not only decide on which activities you want to assign, but how you are going to assign them. So what do you want students to do asynchronously versus, ooh, this is a hard word for me, I'm sorry, yes, synchronously. That's a hard term. So these words, you probably heard them a lot here, but here are the definitions. Synchronous learning happens in real time. Asynchronous learning happens on your own schedule or time. So asynchronous learning options. I have Edpuzzle and Screencastify. I told Melissa before this presentation that I was going to flub these 2 words, and boy did I. So, but anyways, that's fine. We're going to keep on moving. So is there content that you may that you might want students to watch, maybe a lecture, before you meet in your Google Meet or your Zoom? Is there something that you want them to view? And maybe you want them to look at a lecture beforehand and then do an activity together in your virtual meeting. So if that is the case, Edpuzzle, Screencastify, they are both good lecture options. Edpuzzle, I'm sure a lot of you know what that is, but that's a great way to give student lecture videos to watch, and they can view them on their own time. Edpuzzle has a big library of lecture videos, and you can, and some of them teachers have already created, but you can insert your own comprehension and discussion questions in them. And so students would watch the video and they'll be stopped every time a question pops up where you place it. And so in that way, you can actually make sure that they are engaged, they are watching that video, and they are understanding it. So that is a good way to assign lessons for students to watch on their own time before they meet with you. You can also upload your own lecture videos to Edpuzzle and insert your comprehension and discussion questions in those videos. And so another way to do that is for Screencastify. So that is an extension that you can download, and you can record yourself giving a presentation. Maybe you have some Google Slides that you can present with lecture information or information about your class. But what you would need to do is to go to screencastify.com and install the extension. So then you would click the extension icon in the top right corner of your browser. So I've circled it, and a drop-down box will appear. You will click on Screencastify, and then you'll be given options of how you would like to record. Would you like to record your browser tab, your desktop, or just your webcam? So when you are finished video recording, that video will save to your drive, but then you can also upload it. You can share that video to your Google Classroom. You can publish it to YouTube. You get a shareable link, and you can also download it. And so if you download it to your computer, that's where you can then upload it into Edpuzzle. And you can then insert those comprehension and discussion questions for students. Here is tip number 4, give shorter assignments. If we assign a lot to our students for one day, that is going to be overwhelming for them, and it could be a lot on your plate. Some districts, they actually assign a time limit. Like with mine, they said that we couldn't give more than 30 minutes of work a day. So you might have that guideline as well. But here is an activity on your screen from Active Classroom. And as you can see, there are a lot of different sections within this one lesson. And so if I assign this to students, that is going to be overwhelming. And I can think of a lot of students who would just be like, I'm not doing that. They would go about their day. So in Active Classroom, if you use it, you can assign just chunks or just certain parts of an assignment to students. And so here is that same activity. So when I went to assign it to students, I just actually select the portions that I want for students to complete. And now this is what students will see. They will only see these portions. And so now that would be much more manageable for students. They would feel less stressed and less overwhelmed, and they would feel much more capable of completing an assignment, and they would probably be more willing to do it as well. So tip number 5, set a purpose for reading. So when you're assigning readings, set clear, specific instructions to make readings more engaging. You might want to ask yourself before you assign readings, what do I want my students to get from this? Or what do I want my students to do with this reading? So in Active Classroom, there is a place where you can set your own instructions to students. With this example, when I'm assigning this lesson to students, I am asking them in the student instruction box to highlight the main idea of that reading in red and the supporting details in green. And then in Active Classroom, you can also set your own customized highlights by clicking the Customize Highlight button. And so from here, you can actually create your own highlights. You can type in the label. So here I typed in supporting details and then choose your own highlight color and then hit add highlight. And so I've done this for main idea and for supporting details. And then when I assign this to students, they are ready to start reading and highlighting for the main idea and supporting details. So here is a slide. I just wanted to give you some ideas that you can use in your own classroom, some highlighting and annotating ideas, as well as some reading ideas to give to students. So not only I've felt like I've said main ideas, supporting details a lot, but you can have students to highlight something that they believe is important, have a question about, or unsure of the meaning of something, and they can use those symbols as annotations. Maybe you want them to find examples of something in their reading. And then you can also use something called the SIT strategy. They can highlight something surprising, interesting, or troubling. So those are just a few ideas. And then some other reading ideas that you could use maybe even in your virtual meetings. After they read, you might have them use these conversation starters with one another. I was surprised by, I never thought, or I could not believe it when this happened in this reading. After they read a passage, they could create cause and effect statements. So you can have them write some sentences. This event happened because this happened, or this was the effect of this happening. So create cause and effect statements. You can really, kind of pin down what they understand about a reading. Choose 4 very important points, or VIPs. So what are 4, or you could say 3, 5, however many. What important points did you take away from this reading? And you can discuss it. Use it as a guide for discussion. Then you can also, kind of appeal to the artistic sides of students, the creative side, have them create a visual depicting the main ideas of a reading. So if you wanted to take just a picture or a snap of that, you can, but again, this is also be recording, so you can go back and look at it later. Tip number 6 is start assignments with students. This is a basic general tip. We all know that we do, y'all do, or I do, we do, y'all do, something like that. But anyways, if you start an assignment with students, they are going to feel more empowered to complete the assignment. And so they are going to understand what to do, what you're looking for, and then in that way, they're going to have a more successful assignment. So with Active Classroom, there's a lot of opportunities for you to start an assignment with students, for you to model what you're looking for, what you want for students to do, because there are a lot of different sections within one particular lesson. So here, this is a history unfolding lesson. It's an image analysis. So here you can actually do illustrations 1A through 1C with them. You can talk about it, analyze it, answer questions about these images together as a class. Then you can have students examine and complete the rest of the image analysis questions on their own for illustrations 2A and 2B, and then 3A and 3B. And speaking of image analysis, this is an activity that I also created in Menti. I like to do a lot of I see, I wonders with my students. So I will post an image maybe at the beginning of a unit or before I teach a particular content. So I'll post it, and then I would like for them to do an I see, I wonder. And so I transferred this over. I was like, how can I do this virtually? And so what I did in Menti, I typed in the question, what do you see in the image? And I used that as a word cloud. And then I created that second question, what do you wonder about the image? And that was just a question and answer box for them. And so really, these 2 questions, I can use it over and over again for any image. And so this is what we did in my class. I posted an image, and then they went to Menti and they typed in their answers. So the first is the I see slide, and they answered in that word cloud. And then the I wonder is where they typed in their questions. What did they wonder about the image? What's going on in that image? So Menti just kind of made it a little bit easier to conduct this strategy online. I used it in my traditional class and they loved it as well. So I wonder, that's just great to generate discussions before I dive into content. It helps generate background knowledge and it helps just bring up questions about a topic and really gets them thinking about a topic before we dive into that unit. Tip number 7 is to generate online discussions and debates. So, have your students collaborate, give them time to foster a community with each other and discuss ideas about a topic or an issue. In Active Classroom, it is pretty easy because for each activity that you assign, a discussion board is automatically created. So students can go to that discussion board forum and they can connect with one another, talk to one another about an assignment or an activity. You can get a debate going. And so it's very simple to do that within Active Classroom. But if you're not using it, you can generate discussions using your LMS. If you're using Google Classroom, there is an option to post a question under the classwork tab, and then students can respond to one another as an online discussion or debate. Also, during your online virtual meeting, you can pose a question either to the class, just tell them the question or post it in the chat box and then have students respond. But you might want to have them respond at a certain time, like maybe count a timer, say 3, 2, 1, go. And that way you have a little bit of order over when they're responding. If you have students just, responding whenever, you might have a few that do it, and then the rest of the students, may see those first few and they really won't feel as empowered or to respond themselves. So it just gives you a little bit more control over that responding process. Tip number 8 is to give feedback. We know as teachers it's necessary to give constant feedback, no matter if students are virtual or traditional, and our students are going to need a lot of feedback, that additional support, because we're not seeing them face to face. But it can be time consuming to comment on everything you see, type it out. There is an extension, it's called Talk and Comment, the Chrome extension, to leave feedback on different pages for your student work. It works well with Google Docs. So when you download this extension, you are going to see here a microphone will appear on all of the pages that you can leave what's called a voice note. So here on Google Docs, if you hit this microphone button, you then are able to record your note, and then it will give you a link for that particular voice note. You can just copy and paste it then. And so what I've done here is I highlighted a word on the document, and then I hit the plus box for a comment, and then I copied and pasted that link into the comment box. And now students are able to play it back. So this extension is not only helpful for you, but it also provides a personal touch for our students who do not get to see you every day. And then here is my last tip, just to give yourself a break. Self-care can go a long way in these times of virtual learning. We're all trying to figure this out. So it's important to give ourselves time and space to grow and to learn, but try not to get bogged down by anything that's new or stressful. And I know that's very easy to do, and that's something that I have to remind myself a lot, is to not get stressed out, especially with the 63 students in my class. But just allow some time for yourself and just know that you are doing a great job. So does anybody have any questions or any tips that they would like to add here, or any comments or anything else?
So Peter suggested to download a version of the mood meter on his phone, on your phone through Google Play, to see all the variations of moods, and also agreed that Edpuzzle is a great tool and his teachers love using it, teachers and students. And he also said, if you can't have grace for yourself, you can't have grace for your students. So true.
Yes, so true.
Laura Lester asked, do you know how to use interactive journals?
Is that a, can we elaborate on what the interactive journals, or is it the ones that I've created? Or
I know there's a Microsoft Note that may be an interactive journal type.
so I'm not as familiar with interactive. I mean, I have, I created those Google slides with my journal prompts, but that is as far as I've really gotten with interactive journals and things like that.
There's an interactive journal in Slide Mania.
Oh, that would be something I need to check out. Slide Mania, interactive journals. Well, that is something I did not know about.
Sounds like a great resource for students. It looks like a journal. So it's pretty neat. And it has line pages. I'm just reading as she comes, bless her heart. I know, I feel you. Sometimes it takes me a while to respond. So I appreciate your effort there, Laura, sharing this with us. But she's not sure how to paste her own backgrounds into the journal.
Okay. Well, that will be something that we need to look at, Melissa. Slide Mania.
I love that. It's always good for students to, like you said, brain dump, get all those thoughts down. Pretty interesting.
So here is our Director of Professional Learning, Pam Gothart, and that is her email. So if you needed more information, the recording will be up in probably just a few days, right, Melissa? And so you'll be able to view that on the Active Classroom. Is it Active Classroom or Social Studies School Service website?
It's socialstudies.com.
Socialstudies.com. Is there any other comments?
Is Active Classroom an LMS, and do you have to pay for it?
So yes, so Melissa, correct me, is there I know at one point it was, didn't we give like kind of a free subscription at one point, but I'm not sure if that's still going on, but it's something that your school would have to purchase.
You can do a 30-day free trial to check it out. It is a kind of an LMS in that it manages your students and grades and things, but only for this program.
Yes.
Not
So,
for
yes, Active Classroom has its own activities. It has thousands of activities, and within that program, you can assign those activities to students and you can grade. So in that way it is, and you can have discussion. So in that way it is an LMS, but it's just for that particular product. Anything else?
Thank you. Okay, I've added into the chat the evaluation as we're learning and growing in all of these different types of environments. We appreciate your feedback. So if you don't mind to click the link and fill out that evaluation for us, we would definitely appreciate it. And thank you everyone for attending tonight. This was a great session for all of us, I think, sharing of ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you all, and thank you for the ideas you shared. You've given me some ideas to look into and take back into my classroom as well, so thank you all.
So we'll leave that evaluation link up for a little while and stay on for a minute. I know we've been hearing a lot, we're all in this together, but it's really so true. We have to support each other. So as soon as you fill out that evaluation, you're welcome to leave the meeting tonight, and please join us for the next webinar. Jessica or I will probably be there hosting for
I will
some.
be the host.
You will be?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm not presenting, but I am hosting.
Oh, good